Okay, so welcome guys. As most of you know, my name is Duran. I've been running this school since the beginning of 2021. This is our fourth class. We had ups and downs. We learned a lot from other classes. Recently, we had a class that finished. It's a long road, but it's worth it. So I'm happy for you guys to be here. Before I get started, I quickly want everyone to kind of introduce themselves, if you can. So inshallah, yeah, I will start with I can start with how the list is on here on my computer. So I'll start. So basically, the questions is tell us your name, where you live, and one what other questions should I ask? Your favorite movie or show. How about that? So I'll start with that. My name is Duran. I live in Minnesota, St. Cloud, and I'll say my favorite. I don't even remember a movie. That's the thing. My favorite show would be Breaking Bad. Okay, so that's it. So yeah, I'll start with Watson. Go ahead. Tell us about that.
My name is Warsan. I live in Bloomington, Minnesota, and my favorite show is Law and Order, SVU.
Nice. Okay. Kansa, go ahead. I only see email cards, so that's why.
Yeah, haddaad magacii ma bedelin because rush I thought put it my own email.
No problem.
Okay. My name is Abdul Qadir. I'm from the Netherlands. I live in Netherlands. Yeah, my home show TV show is Break Prison.
Oh, nice. I never heard of it. Should look it up. Thank you. I think my list changed. Radia, go ahead. I think that's Hanan.
Assalamu alaikum, guys. My name is Radia, currently located in Riyadh, and my favorite show will be The Office.
Nice. I like Office too. Abdul Hakim, go ahead, bro.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Aniga magacayga waxa la Cabdixakiin Sobeys aad u jeediin. Waxaana deganahay Sweden, Stockholm. Favorite showgaygana waxa weeyaan Prison Break, siduu ninkii hore sheegay. Mid baan anaga isagu.
I like Prison Break. Okay, Fortune, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Fortune. I live in Chicago, and my favorite show is probably Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Fathi, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, guys. Magacaygu waa Fathi. I live in Columbus, Ohio. This might come off weird or something, but I really don't have a favorite show. I'm not big on watching shows and stuff. Sports ka Hassan Dawada, and nice meeting you all.
Nice. Nice sports. That's really cool. I like basketball. I like watching basketball sometimes, especially in my
son and I, we are more into track and field. Like we are big Farah, I'd be like we watch those guys.
Oh, track, that's really cool. I know the East African people dominate that area in Olympics. That's really nice. Mohammed, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum. Asxaabtu waa idin salaam kulligiin. I live in Ohio, Columbus. TV waxaas ma daawadaan, sports la daawadaan.
What's your favorite team?
Barcelona.
Oh, nice. Soccer. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hanan, go ahead.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Hanan. I am from Denver, Colorado. I would probably agree with Radia, The Office. Yeah, that's the best show.
Oh, I love The Office. I watch back to back like several times.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's really cool. Mohammed Abdi, Gras, go ahead, brother.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Mohammed Abdi. Currently I live in Columbus, Ohio, and I really watch movies because I don't have a time most of the time, but I watch some sports, especially NBA.
That's cool. Yeah, I like NBA too. By the way, guys, Muhammad is from the previous cohort, so he knows most of the stuff you guys are learning. Mashallah. So if you have any question, yeah, you could talk to him too. He's kind of like Kabir in the class. Mashallah. Thank you for coming, bro. Okay, Muhammad Farah, go ahead.
Wow.
Oh, I guess. Okay, yeah, just the list keeps changing, so sorry about that. Okay, is there anyone I missed?
محمد راعي محمد فرح بوسكي ويحوغ أمرينا.
Allah صابر Allah.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah, that's true. I was like, wait, the microphone is different. Go ahead, Muhammad Ragi.
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I'm so happy that the program is international. Meelo badan laga soo gelaya, mashallah. That's great.
Yeah, we have few students international. Yep.
So magacayga waa Maxamed Raage, waxaan deganahay Minneapolis ama Minnesota Blaine. Maxaa kale favorite show Family Feud.
Very funny show. Everybody like you can see on social media everywhere.
It would be nice to know what everybody does, you know.
Yeah. Inshallah, we'll get to know more. The reason why I'm making it short today is because we have a lot to cover. But we're gonna have more next week. We're gonna learn more about everyone. And then also you guys gonna be working as a team in I think a few weeks. So you guys are gonna get to know more about yourself. So as time goes by, you guys gonna know more, inshallah. But yeah, today I just want to cover a lot, so I don't want to waste anyone's time. We only have 2 hours to cover everything, so it's gonna be inshallah we're gonna try to complete that. But yeah, let's get started. Someone's coming in. I'll admit that person, no problem. Let's get started, inshallah. Yeah, Halima, welcome. Let's get started. So I will, inshallah, start with, first of all, I'll start with just a couple of slides, inshallah, so that you guys get an idea of what we're trying to do and understand like what we want you to, you know, kind of like learn. So first of all, welcome everyone. We'll start with the schedule and the curriculum. And before that, let me just say a little bit about Gaby School. If you go to the Gaby School website, you can learn more about it. It's an online bootcamp I started a while back. So the idea came in 2020 when I was actually looking for a job, and I was like, I like teaching coding, so why don't I just start a online bootcamp? And also I finished a bootcamp myself, so I didn't go to 4-year school. I went to community college, but after that I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to bootcamp. So I finished bootcamp myself, and the concept and the ideas I'm teaching here are mostly based on that bootcamp. And the bootcamp I went to is called Bloom Tech now. They changed their name. So most of the idea, most of the curriculum, most of the concept is based on their ideology, and you know they have a lot of money, so they build a really nice system. So I just plagiarize most of their stuff, but I put on my spin, and also the courses I'm teaching them, and also I created the assignments and stuff like that. So yeah, so yeah, Gaby School is a Somali-owned online bootcamp. Okay. So let's go to the schedule, which you guys have seen. Every Sunday, we're doing 10 a.m. Live class, US Central Time. So if you live in Europe or other countries, keep that in mind. It's usually 6 hours difference or 8-hour difference. we'll spend you have to spend at least 3 hours every day on weekdays to kind of do the assignment. So I will show you the assignment at the end of the class. So that's really important. Every day, 3 hours, I will say mostly at the end of the day. But if you can't do it, send me a private message telling me when you decide to do that, and I will try to be online and maybe help you if you have any questions. So yeah, and also the curriculum, you could find it in the student portal, which we'll show you guys later, which is in here. It's in here. So let me put in my so this is the student portal, which you guys have access to. All right, next would be attendance. So attendance is required for the live lecture, so it's a must. And also I will recommend you guys take this serious and kind of like tell everyone Sunday 10 a.m. to whatever your time is, the Minnesota time 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Is my time to learn this class. So take it serious, inshallah. If you miss one class, it's as if you missed a whole week. So it's a serious thing, and you might miss a lot of the lessons. So it's critical for you to come to this class, inshallah. And take those 3 hours on the weekdays serious too. Otherwise, it will be hard for you to finish. Maybe this lesson, the HTML, might be easy for you to finish on the weekday, but on when we reach more complicated concepts, you might have a hard time. You might need more time, those 3 hours or even maybe more. Submitting assignments. So you're required to submit the assignment at the end of Friday. So you have the whole week to finish the assignment. And then your last time is Friday. So Friday midnight is when you're going to submit the assignment. And I'll show you how to submit the assignment, all that stuff, inshallah, when we get to the student portal. Asking for help. I want you guys to ask for help. Don't be shy about asking help. That's one of the things, you know, I have seen a lot of students before. They have a hard time asking for help. I had a hard time asking help. And it comes down to basically just you don't want to put yourself out there when everyone is doing, you know, the work. You don't want to seem like the person who's behind or something like that. But you're paying for this class, and you want to take advantage of it. And even if you're not paying for it, you want to take advantage of every resources. Use the 20-minute rule, which is basically if you can't figure out a problem in 20 minutes, I would recommend you to ask for help. You don't want to spend so much time on something that can be resolved in 5 minutes. And also ask questions in the Slack channel. So our Slack channel is right here. This not this one. This is our Slack channel. You can send messages here. If you want to send me a private message, that's fine. But make sure you post your questions here, and I'll try to answer them, inshallah. And make your questions specific. So try to do it yourself. If you can't, then post a picture of what you tried and how you try to solve it. Grading. So grading is not like typical school. Basically, the grading is not designed to kind of punish you or make you feel like you're not succeeding. It's a scale, basically. So you actually grade yourself. So when you finish the assignment, you grade yourself in three scale number. So the first one is you didn't meet expectations. So when you submit an assignment, so if you go down here on the student portal, you will see that there's a little form here. You choose the week, you put the link, project link, and then right here you choose the grading scale. So I would say the minimum should be 2. So that will be basically finishing the assignment and doing the, you know, what do you expect it to do? So that's great. So if you do 2, that's great. If you do 3, that means you exceeded the requirement. That means we will have some extra homework, basically. So if you do that, then that's good. If you actually go above and beyond, then choose 3. So you grade yourself, and then after that, we will grade you too. So right here, right here you have self-grading. So when you submit assignments, it's going to show up here, self-grading, and then you have the TA grading. TA is a teacher assistant, but it could be instructor grading. So we'll see that. So that's the grading. It's just for you to figure out, like, have you finished the assignment? Have you not? If you have one, that means you contact us, tell us what are you having a hard time with. I will try my best to sit down with you and help you and figure things out. So just keep that in mind. Some of the tools that we need is Slack. So if you don't have a Slack, download it on your computer and in your phone, and also open the notification so you don't miss the class. I'll try not to send too many notifications. And also you could set a notification so that you could only receive a message that has this tag, the channel tag. So go into the settings of Slack and turn that on, and then you'll receive that, inshallah. And then we have Zoom, which we're using right now. We have the portal, the student portal, which is this one. And then CodeBin, which is going to be the one we're going to use right here. So CodeBin is a free website where you could code on the website. So it helps you. You don't have to download like a software to code or anything. And we're going to do it on the first assignment only. So the first lesson only is the one we're going to use CodeBin for. After that, the assignments are not going to be on CodeBin. They're going to be on a website called the GitHub. So I will recommend you, whenever you get a time, make accounts in these two websites. And we'll talk about GitHub in the future. I'll explain more about it and what it is. But yeah, these are some of the tools that we're going to be using. I try to minimize the tools and all that stuff because we can, people can get overwhelmed, and you don't want too many tools. So keep that in mind. And the student portal, let me talk a little bit about it. So the student portal, I want you guys to log into the student portal at least, every day, except like Saturday. So log in, go through the lesson. And also I recommend you guys to go through the lesson before we start the class. So I recommend you to waking up in the morning on Sunday, 1 hour to 30 minutes, just go to the material and read about it, because we literally have every week we have already the material prepared in a reading format, in a written format, but we will have a video format in the future, so you could also try that. The first two lessons have a video format. So this one, I think it has a video format, it might not, but I think I want you guys to get used to like reading technical stuff, because when you get a job, the company wants you to read documentations. They want you to read like technical documentations. So I want you to read before the class. You don't have to understand everything. Some of the jargon might not make sense to you. Some of the stuff might not make sense to you. That's fine. I want you just to read it and then come to class. And then what I say will make more sense to you. It will be a little bit easier. And also today, when we're going over the HTML, I expect everyone to at least try the pre-course. If you tried, that's great. If you haven't, we'll go over HTML today, which is the lesson today right here. So most of you will be familiar with what HTML is. So that's the importance of like going over something before you come to class, inshallah. So that's the student portal. Okay, and then inshallah, that's pretty much it. So any questions about what we just covered? Any question you guys have? Any questions about the class? What do you expect it to do? Things like that. Okay, so let's move on. One thing I don't want to do is I don't want you guys to be bored. I know some of the stuff could be technical. I want you to be participating basically. So try to ask questions, participate as much as you can, and I'll try my best to also kind of like gauge like that you understand the thing. So right now we're not doing the class, we're not doing the lesson yet. So that's why when we're going through the lesson, I'll try more more things to engage you guys. Okay, so yeah, so let's get to the actual lesson today, which is HTML. So most of you know what HTML is, but before we do that, let me talk about something, how websites work basically. So let's say like most of you use like Facebook, right? So if you go to Facebook, or maybe let me go to my website. So let's go to Gibby School. Facebook could have like personal information, stuff like that. So my website, Gibby School, it has this page. You can navigate and go to another page, and it will just load that page for you. How did someone build this from scratch? Basically, that's what we need to understand when it comes to websites. So you could actually go to any website, right? If you have Chrome, and right click and click inspect, right? Inspect is going to bring up like the code of the website. Did you guys know that you could actually see almost all the code of the website except very few lines that manage like the database and stuff like that? So everything that you see here visually is designed with code, and you could actually see all that right here. So this is actual HTML right here, and you could inspect it. You could see how people actually built their website, and you can see what they used. And some people might think, oh, this is like hacking. Really, so it's not hacking. So you can see the code here, but you can't do anything with it. You can't hack the website. You can know more about the website, and you might be able to see some information that you could use to hack the website. But in reality, most websites, you can't hack them. Not only the HTML, you can see the CSS, which is right here on the right side. And the CSS is like what makes the website look nice. And then you could also see the JavaScript. So if we go to, I think, where was it? Let's go to sources. So if you go to sources, you could literally see the files of the JavaScript right here. So if we go through here, you can see JS, which is JavaScript, and you can see the whole JavaScript code. So some people might think this is like exposing the website, but this is every website. If you go to any social media, you could literally just see their JavaScript, their HTML. There's also console here, which is a place you could run code and stuff like that. So the thing is, the website is divided into three parts, right? So let me draw some stuff here. Why am I taking a picture? Okay, let me draw some stuff here. So the website is divided into three parts. So the website has something called front end. So this is front end. I'm gonna say FE, front end. The front end is basically what we just saw. It's basically like the visual things of the website. So the colors, the HTML, the CSS, all that stuff is front end, right? And then when you click something in the front end, it's gonna send a request, or it's gonna send a, it's gonna request some information. So this is a backend. So this is the backend, and also the backend could also be the database. But let's say the backend is this. So this is the server. So you'll have a server here. On server, when I say server, I'm just talking about like a normal computer. So there's a computer somewhere sitting, holding all the information for this website. So let's say when you post something on Facebook, it's gonna take to this server and add it to the server. So it's gonna say, hey, I have a post for you. But the problem with the server is it can't hold all the information. So it cannot hold a lot of information. It could process information. So what it's gonna do is it's gonna do processing, and it's gonna send that information to a database. A lot of people draw a database like this. I'm really bad at drawing. Sorry about that. So database, I'm gonna say DB. It's gonna send to database, and the database is gonna keep that information. So what next time you request that you ask, you want to see that post, then you're gonna send another request saying, hey, I want to see that post. And then the server is gonna send requests to the database. It's gonna say, hey, so and so, they want to see their own post, and the database is gonna send requests back. So now this is the section that you want to protect, right? This is where hackers, they like going to, especially the database. Once you hack the database, it means you have all the information. The server is basically another layer that talks to the database. And there's a programming languages you could use to talk to between these two. So that's how websites work, basically. This is where you interact with, this is where you click things, all that stuff. But some, you know, when you go to Facebook, you cannot post something on somebody else's page, right? Like you can't post on behalf of someone else. So if I have my own account, I can't just use somebody else's account to post. They have to they have to give me their email and password. So that's called authentication. It means you're not allowed to use somebody else's information. You can only see your information. So this is where they put the authentication. They call it off, right? So they're gonna verify that who you are, and then they do another verification, and then after that they let you access that information, right? So that's how websites work in general. Like this is a very simplified version of website. Any question? Any question you guys have?
So are you, Duran, are you going to share the slides with us later on, or is it shared somewhere?
Yes, I'll share the slides with you, inshallah. I'll post it on the Slack when we finish this, inshallah.
Okay.
Any questions of how websites work? And this is extremely simplified. So there's a lot more complication to it, but this in general, this is how it kind of looks. All right, so let's move on to our slides here. So what is HTML in general? So HTML is abbreviation for hypertext markup language. And we're gonna go a little bit faster on this because most of you know, but don't worry, you know, over time you'll understand what it is and how to use and stuff like that. HTML is the easiest. I would say it's not a programming language; it's a markup language. So it says here markup language. So you'll learn easily. It's not the hardest one. It's a text, basically like a PDF or Microsoft Word. It's a text formatting or structuring markup language. It was created in 1993 by this guy, Tim Berners-Lee. He created this. Tim Berners-Lee, there's a whole story behind it. Tim Berners-Lee, he was working at CERN. CERN is it's a scientific laboratory. He was working in CERN, and then he realized that people were sending, scientists were sending documentations to each other, but there was no there was no general like used a documentation. So everybody was using their own format. So some people were using something like PDF, some people were using like HTML, other people were using their own version of format. And when you try to see their documentation, you have to use their own software that they created with this stuff. So like you will have like 10 to 20 softwares installed in your computer to just view a document. And then he brought up this idea of let's create something that everyone can use, and it's on internet, and then you could just write your documentations on that and then share that. So that was the idea behind it. And it's the building blocks behind every website. And also the HTML file ends with .html or .htm sometimes. And it also went through many versions. The latest one is HTML5. And they always kind of updating it and changing it. The structure of HTML looks like this. It's basically just like any document, like PDF or Microsoft Word, but you write it with code. So you start with the HTML tag, and this is called tags. So tag, and then you have the header tag. The header tag defines basically like the title and meta tag and stuff like that. And then you have the body. The body is where you define like your text, what other people are going to see. So on our website, right here, all this stuff is in the body, basically. And then there's other tags you could put in. So you could nest tags within each other. So now like this tag H1, P tag, P stands for paragraph, and we'll learn that, inshallah. This is kind of like the anatomy of HTML. HTML kind of like a tag. So typical tag would be like P, which is a paragraph. It will have an opening tag. It will have a closing tag. So the closing tag will have that slash, right? So every time you have a closing tag, it has to have that ending slash. And then you will put everything in between, right? So this is kind of like the anatomy to keep in mind. Some tags might not have the ending, and we'll see that. Some of the most useful tags or most used tags would be H1 or to H6. These are defined as the header. So if you go to like CNN.com, the largest text, the largest title of the website is H1, right? So the largest one. So if we go to our website here, this is like H1 basically, and these are paragraphs, right? And this could be H2 or H3 or something like that. You could inspect it and see it too if you like. And then the paragraph, we talked about it, it's just a text, a block of text. And A tag stands for anchor. It means it's a link. So if you see a link, and if we go back here and we click something like this, it's a link. It's going to send us to somewhere. These are A tags, anchor tags. We have a div. A div is very generic. It means a section basically, or a portion of the website. So a div could be this whole thing, this image, and the text underneath it could be all this underneath it could be a div, right? One div. And then this image itself could be one div. So you could like nest divs within each other. I think it stands for division, but it's very generic. Image, you guys can, guess that one. It's an image tag. Use it to show your image. UL stands for unordered list. So if you're trying to make a list, so let's say if we go to here, let's get rid of this. Why is it not closing? If you go to, if you go here, you have like a list here. 1, 2, 3, I don't know why it starts at 2. But this is ordered list. So if you have a numbered list, it means it's ordered list. And that's what OL stands for. Unordered list is a list with like just dots, right? Instead of numbers. And then there's another tag called span. So all these tags, you could go to W3 School website. And I'll give you guys these resources too. If you go to the HTML section and go to, this is all what you can learn in HTML. But here on this website, you can see they explain each tag and what it means. So if we go to, let's say, heading, they explain what the heading looks like, each one of them, and how do you write it, right? So I'll share this with you guys if you like, right here. So you don't have to memorize these tags. You could write them down now as a note, but you could always go back to that website and find whichever header that you want to use. And I'll show them an example here in our lesson too. And also lastly, I want to talk about something called semantic HTML. Semantic HTML is basically when they were creating HTML or recent HTML, which is HTML5, they decided to divide the website into different sections, right? So you have the header of the website, you have the navigation, you have a section, an article, you have a site. A site could be like on the site, like when you have like ads and stuff like that, and then you have a footer. So these are actual tags, right? These are tags made by the HTML people. And the reason why they created these tags, we call them semantic HTML. It means you understand what, the tag kind of like defines what it is basically. So the header tag actually defines itself and it says header. And this was designed for many things, but one of the most important reasons why it was why we want to use semantic HTML is for people who are using devices to check your website. So people who cannot see and use like iPhone, they have like a reading app or reading, the phone reads for them. They can't see anything on the website. So when they go to your website, the phone is going to read, oh, you're on the header, So the font would say header. Nav, it will say section. It will say footer. So the person knows where they're at the website. So you make it easy for them to read that. Another thing would be if you want Google to index your website. So Google looks through our website and it just basically indexes your website. So it knows where, the robot, the bots from Google, they know which section is which. They don't have to guess anything, right? So in general, that's a preview of what HTML is. Any questions? Any questions you guys have about that? So we're going over quicker. You could watch this video later. Also, we have other videos on the student portal too about HTML. People who came after, welcome. Anissa and Halima, welcome, guys. All right. Okay. So if there is no any question, also you could send as a written. Is HTML programming language? No, it's a markup language. And there's also actually a meme about that too, right? If we put on Google HTML memes, there's a whole culture of memes about HTML being in a programming language, right? This person said, I never face an error since years. What language? HTML. And it's like all angry because it's not a programming language. You're not going to get an error if you don't program. And this whole thing, I'm an HTML programmer. Yeah. So yeah, there's a whole thing. There's a whole thing about HTML and NASA memes. Yeah, so learn HTML to get a job, but learn HTML to hack NASA. So so hacking NASA, basically you go to the NASA website and then you modify like the inspect section, and that means you hacked NASA website. Can you get a job using just HTML? Yes, you could get a job just using HTML. You don't have to know JavaScript. I would say HTML and CSS, they kind of complement each other. So I would say HTML and CSS, you could get a job with that. There's jobs about email templates. So you creating email templates with just HTML and CSS. So, and also like creating a website templates and stuff like that. So what is a markup and why is it important? What is a markup and why is it important? Yeah, that's a good question. A markup is basically so for example, like you come to a document. So let's say let's open Microsoft Word basically as an example. Sorry about that. I don't type in anything. Let me just use the search. So to Word. So you go to Microsoft Word and you write something, right? Let's write something, whatever. I'm sorry, mine is dark, but you write something. If you want to mark up this text, you highlight it, and then you have all these options to mark it up. So you can make it bold, you can change the color, right? So that's basically like marking up in programming. It's the same concept, but you use code to change the text and stuff like that. And right here, you could change the font, make it bigger. Font and the size. So it's important because how would you differentiate what is important? Like this text is more important than this text. How would you differentiate? If they're both small text, then nobody want to read that. It's gonna look boring and not cool. That's why. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. Any other questions? Yes. So yep, markup is formatting the text basically, creating a hierarchy. So if you go to websites, news websites use all the time. So I was saying earlier, if you go to like CNN, the biggest text is the one that's most important, right? So you have the title here, you're not gonna read this text first. You're gonna read the first one, the biggest one first, and they use basically HTML. I mean, they're more complicated, but if you inspect, at the end of the day, they're all using basic HTML. As you can see here, right here, they're using H2 to make the biggest one, right? And you just learned what H2 is, just showed you. H1, H2, H3, right? And the other ones are same. So this one, they're using something else, maybe like H5 or something like that, or they're using different tags. They're using H3 here on the top, and they're using something called strong right here. What do you advise to those who are overwhelmed and intimidated by coding? What kept you going? What was the motivation? Yeah, so I would love to cover and talk about it. We might run out of time on the lesson, but yeah, I mean, in general, is it's basically just keeping up with it. You don't have to understand everything. It's just like learning a foreign language. So if you want to learn like Chinese or Arabic, you're not gonna know everything, and you're never gonna know everything. You're never gonna become like expert and know every word of that language. You only need what you need to use, right? So consider programming as learning a new language. And what I'm teaching you right now is like fundamentals. It's like the ABC. So I'm teaching you the ABC right now. And then we'll cover more of like the conjugations and connecting things. We'll cover more on like sentence structures. And they're actually called in programming syntax, just like languages have syntax, right? So it's basically starting from scratch. I'm teaching you the ABC. So you're not going to know a lot if you just know the ABC, right? So if I know like the Arabic ABC, I'm not going to be able to like listen something in Arabic and understand right away. So be patient with it. Over time, you'll get it, and you'll see yourself kind of like coding. And also ask Muhammad Abdi, he's in here, I think. When they were starting, Muhammad, are you in here? Abdi.
Yes, man, I'm here.
Yeah, Muhammad, he started with us. Tell us a little bit about marka bilawday and like iyo hadda.
Well, to be honest, man, it's big difference. I didn't have any idea what is coding like, and it was in my mind. It was like some magic, Or if you're gonna code, you have to be smart and talented and unique person.
Yeah.
So it's still I'm learning stuff,
But now you're coding with React, right?
Yes, it's big difference. You're gonna start like from the basics, and you're gonna keep doing it, but eventually you're gonna get there, inshallah, with the hard work and consistency.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. A lot of students started with Muhammad, and we only have like only 3-4 people left at the end. That means most people got busy, things got hard. So make sure to just keep it up with it. And even if you don't understand some parts of it, that's fine. Just keep it up and keep going. Thanks for asking, Anissa. How many hours do I need if it's the first time? How about the job market? So how many hours do you need? I'll say minimum 3 hours a day. That will be minimum. If you want to put more time, I will recommend that. The more time you put it in, the more fruits you're gonna get back from it. So, and the job market's great. The job market's amazing. Although we have like we have economic issue challenges and stuff, it's still people are getting hired in coding. It's a big market. And also it's at first it's not easy to get a job, but once you get a job, it's 6 figures minimum right now. So the average is 76,000 in US to start with. But yeah, I mean it's a great market. Do you think you will be able to build a website by the end of the course? Yes, you'll be able to build a website and much more. You'll be able to code a whole website from beginning to end, even the database, everything. You'll be able to set it up. So it sounds impossible right now, but with hard work, you could do it, and I'll be here with you guys. What was the journey like getting the job? Just step by step. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, these are really good questions. I want to answer all of them, but yeah, we want to finish it, and then inshallah, maybe if we have a time at the end, I can answer all of them. So let me put these questions. Let me just copy them. I can't copy them here. I'll answer them at the end, inshallah. Don't worry. But let's finish the lesson and then show you like your assignment, so we don't run out of time at the end, inshallah. Okay, so let's get started with the coding. So we're gonna use this website CodeBen right here, and so this website, it's pretty easy to understand. Like they have HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, 3 sections. We're not going to use the JavaScript now, and also the CSS, so we can get rid of them right there. We only have the HTML here, and we have some instructions. So basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to convert this blob of text into a formatted text using HTML. That's what we're trying to do. And that will be your assignment too for the week. You're gonna have a assignment. It's gonna be on the website right here. So when you come to the lesson here, go to the assignment page, and you will have more instructions here. You're gonna be building a website called the Fatima Restaurant. People that used to live in San Diego know Fatima Restaurant. So yeah, Fatima Restaurant was a restaurant in San Diego. I used to live there, so. Basically, you're going to build a website for Fatima Restaurant on your assignment using HTML. So that's going to be your assignment, and we're gonna do the similar thing. So you're gonna have something to look back to instead of you starting from scratch, right? So let's do that. Let's start with the coding. So in general, when you try to start a HTML file, it's going to be it's not going to be here all the time, right? We're going to learn something called editor, and that would be like a software that you use. So I use a software called Visual, it's called Microsoft Visual Studio Code. VS Code. So this software, I would recommend you to download it whenever you can. You don't have to use it now. It's going to be for the next lesson next week. But this is like an editor. Instead of using this website, we're going to use that in the future. But when we're using this website, they made it easy for us, so we don't have to write like the building blocks basically. But we will write it. We'll just write it here. So consider this to be like an actual file that's empty. There's nothing in it, right? So starting with, we want to make sure we want to use semantic HTML, and semantic will help us with this. We talked about it, and then inshallah we will lay it out. So first of all, the International Airport, that's the title of the website. That's the name of the website. We have navigation, home, about, flights, and contacts. We have a first header or title. We have some text. We have another header, I think. No, this is a button. This is a button. Book a flight is a button, and then plan your flight is another header. It has this text, and then we have the footer, which is this navigation. So it's like a typical basic website, right? So to start with, we need to make sure like we show like the structure of HTML, right? Kind of my computer is lagging, so I'm gonna turn off the video. So we'll start with first a div, right? So everything starts with a div. So you have to before we do the div, and let's get rid of this for now. Let's start with the normal HTML structure. So we learned the HTML structure starts with HTML, which we learned here. Where was it? Right here. So this is the structure, right? So let's start with that structure. So HTML, and then you have to go all the way down to the file and write closing HTML. And let me zoom this in so you guys can see better. Right? How's that? Is that better? Okay. I can zoom it in more. Okay, so the HTML tag, it has to cover the whole file, right? And then HTML. And sometimes that's our first error, right? So if you don't do that, it might create issues for you. So make sure the spelling is correct on everything. And then let's create the header. And make sure to kind of like go in and tap so you indent that. So header, that means head, that means head goes under HTML. And let's close this head. Inside the head, you could put in a title. And this will be the title of the website. It's going to show up right here. This one, it's not going to show up here because we're in a sandboxed environment. But when you actually create a website, it's going to show up here, this title. So let's say International Airport title. Okay. And then, so everything else goes under body. So let's create another tag called body. And go all the way down and create body. And so what am I missing here? I think I'm missing something here. Who can point me the issue here? Anyone?
You did not close it?
I didn't close it. Remember, you need the slash here to close it. Right? Need that slash. All right. So we have the body and we could indent all this text into the body. So we could just do that. So that it's structured a little bit better. Okay, so now we have the general structure of the website. Nothing is going to change how it looks like because we didn't mark up the text at all, right? So let's mark it up. Let's start with a div. So we're going to put everything in a div. And a div is a generic container, basically. Let's put everything in a div. And let's indent everything, right? So it goes under. So now we have a div. Let's divide everything into sections now. Remember we talked about the semantic. So this header section is what we're going to work on now. So the header section, let's consider this portion to be the header section, right? The title of the website or the logo, let's say, and also the navigation. Let's put that in a header. Header. And let's put right here, header. Keyboard. Okay, indent that. Now we're gonna divide these two. So this one is for the logo or the website title. And as you can see, it's already kind of dividing. It gives you this portion. So we have the header, and then let's give this one a H1 tag. H1. H1. And every time you do the same, it has to be the same. And it's not case sensitive, so you could say that's H1, right? It actually does it for you automatically now, but in general, it's not case sensitive. But you cannot put H2 here and put H1 here. That would be an error. Okay, now you can see the International Airport. Boom. It's big now. All right, let's put the navigation on another tag. So we want to put the navigation, we want to actually change a little bit here. So then navigation is going to be under the header, right? So let's change that a little bit. So let's put the nav here under header. Nav. And then nav. Make sure to close all the time. Sometimes the students miss that and they have like texts that are not showing, well. So always close. Okay. So now we have the navigation, and then we have to define each navigation for its own line or its own text, basically. Remember, if you go to our website, all the navigations are always linked, right? So we need to make them a link. Who can tell me what tag should I use here?
An A tag.
An A tag, yes. So let's use A tag. So if I do this, will this work? And if it doesn't work, why would it not work? Like, see here, it's not, there's no link. Why is it not working? Okay.
You missing the href?
Yes, so you need an attribute. So if you went through the training material that I put together, an A tag will not work without an attribute. And we will learn more about attributes later. But an attribute is basically some tags, they have their own specific attribute. So it has an href, this one. Href is basically the reference. Where do you want to go, basically? This is a link, but you didn't give me where to go. So that's why I'm not making a link. Now, as you can see here, down here, you see that it's a link. You could click it, but it's not going to go anywhere because you have to put like where it's going to go here. You could put in like google.com here, right? And if you click here, it will go to google.com, right? We're not going to do it right now, but it will go to google.com, right? So href, just put that in your note. It's a weird thing to write, but you just have to remember that every time you write an A tag, have a closing tag here. If you don't have a closing tag, what happens is everything becomes a link. Everything after that will become a link, right? So that's why it's important to have a closing tag. Okay, so href is a must. You have to have that attribute, otherwise it won't work. So for now, we're gonna put on the pound sign. That means it's not gonna go anywhere. It's basically just a placeholder. And then we're gonna do the same for the rest. So for these navigations, we're gonna do the same. And then we're gonna add the closing tag. Any question about that? Any question about these tags? Okay, so that's generally how you make a link in general. So if you want to make a link, you create this, and then you put your link here where people go to. Okay.
Oh, I asked, what does the H stand for? Does it stand for hyperlink?
The H, actually, I don't even remember. That's the thing. Like in programming, you actually have to Google everything. You're not gonna remember everything. So this is a lesson for you to just Google whatever. Like just use Google as much as you can. And when you work, and actually nobody's gonna ask you why you're using Google. It's not plagiarizing. Like some people here, we have like writers and linguists. When you write a paper, the teacher puts through a plagiarizing software, and they know where this came from and all that stuff. In programming, you could literally copy somebody else's code, and nobody's gonna say anything. It's not plagiarizing at all. In some, like if you are a big company and you copy a whole software for another company, yeah, they're gonna sue you. But if you're just a typical person building your own website, nobody cares where you copy the code from. Most of the time, bigger companies, their code is hidden, so you're not going to be able to copy their private, code, proprietary stuff. But the href, H stands for hypertext reference, basically. So you're right. So hypertext reference. And this is basically just saying it's gonna take you somewhere else. And this is actually why HTML was created, is to link different documents. So remember I told you about the guy, Tim Berners-Lee created the HTML in CERN in like 1980s. He wanted a way to for people to go to different documents. So you create a document and then you want them to go to another document. How are you going to tell them? You could either give them that, like the link of that document, or you could just create this tag, and then they will just click it and go to that one. And all 90s, actually, all websites was just the links, right? That was all 90s. That was even early 2000s. That all websites were just a bunch of links. So it's important. So it's in the name of HTML. Okay. Any other question?
So you mentioned proprietary. So there's just my questions are more for clarification. There are open source, proprietary, and then there's just other code that's just, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have any particular.
Yeah. So there is a website like W3 Schools. They give you code. They give you like a bunch of code to try it out. So this is for learning purposes. They're not going to say anything if you just copy a little bit of their code. But there's also a website called Stack Overflow. This website is where like programmers look for solutions. So Stack Overflow, like if you look for something like JavaScript, let's say error, Stack Overflow, right? You'll find people talking about it here, people asking questions, and then they will give you a little code here. They'll say, hey, try this out. So nobody's going to say anything about this because this person gave you that. And the rules for Stack Overflow is that if you share code, it means anyone can use it, right? Not only this, but there's places that people store their code and they make it public. So that will become like open source, as you said. So you could use all that. Anything you see on the internet that you see a code, you could use it. If a company wants to hide their code, they will hide it. Like Apple, you will never see the Apple code. The code they use to kind of do their stuff because they hide that and it's proprietary. It's just like McDonald's hiding their ingredients. They're not gonna put their ingredients everywhere, especially their secret ingredients. But they will put in typical ingredients that everybody knows, right? So that's kind of like code. So you could use whatever like you see on the internet. Sure, go ahead. All right. So Anis is asking about the inspect. If you inspect the website, right? Can you use that code? Yes, you could use that code. It might be, if you just copy in another website, they might see your website and it looks exactly like them and it might not be good. Change it a little bit so it's not exactly the same. But yeah, you could still use it. Okay, let's move on. This will be another let's create another div. Also we want to add like an image. I want to show you an example of an image. So let's add the image right here. Okay, who can tell me the image tag? What is the image tag? IMG. Yep, IMG. If I do this, should I do like this? Correct me if I'm wrong. IMG. Is this how I write it? And then put the image here?
Visual Studio Code.
So I see Fatih said you need SRC or source. So just like the link, this will not work. And also image has a self-closing tag. You don't need the closing tag for image. So it's one of those tags that don't need a closing tag, right? And then you need a attribute. It will not work without an attribute. So the attribute will be source, SRC. And the source is basically where the image is hosted. So just like the link here, you want to put in where the image is at. So let me copy this long link. Put it here. Sorry about this. It's really long. I can minimize it maybe. But in general, it's basically saying this is where the image is hosted, right? Let me see if I can minimize it. Short URL. Can you mute yourself, inshallah, if you don't ask question.
Inshallah.
All right, let's make it short. Copy this. Someone's not muted. Ahmed, you mute yourself, inshallah. So yeah, let me copy this post here. So should work the similar ways. But if we go down, what are we missing here? We're missing something. This is your first time debugging code. You put an image, you don't see the image. What's happening? Who can tell me what's wrong with here? This is how you debug code. Like in general, like something is wrong, but you don't know what's wrong. So you have to look at the code carefully. You're missing something.
Did we not close it maybe?
No, it's closed. It's self-closing, so it's just closed this way.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear Ahmed. Welcome, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is it because we should put the source src at the beginning?
So we have the source here, and we have the image here.
Should we reverse the location of img and source? Start with source space img. I'm just guessing. Not.
Are we
That's okay.
are we missing a colon? Maybe we're missing a colon.
Maybe a colon. Maybe. Let me show you how you figure this out, right? So if you're stuck like this, go to Google and type image source HTML. So I'm just teaching you guys how to like figure your own problem. So usually W2 schools will come up. Just click it, and this exactly shows you exactly what you need to do. It adds more stuff to it. Just ignore this part, but this is the part we're just doing. What is the difference? This one and this one. What is the difference?
Equal sign.
The equal sign, right? So that's how you find a problem, right? In programming, that's all you do in general. So you can see now, it shows the image. In programming, that's it. That's a little it. You have a problem here, and sometimes you might not know the problem. So you could just say something like, you could add the image and then say not showing the image. And then Stack Overflow is going to come up most of the time right here. Somebody's saying HTML is not showing what's going on. And then somebody's going to correct them and say, hey, let's check this out. And then you just read through this and figure it out that way, right? So that's how I do it at work too. If I see something and nothing is working, that's how I do it. So that's a tip on how to figure out your own problems. Okay, so you have the image, so that's good. Next, we're gonna create a section. Remember, we're still doing the semantic HTML. So we're gonna do a section to show all these text. So let's add section here. Section tag. Go all the way down to right here. Close section. Okay, the section is not gonna do anything. It's just gonna divide the text. This is going to be a title. We're not going to use H1 because we already used H1 up here. So make sure you use only one H1 per page. You could still use H1 if you want, but it's good to, for a hierarchy kind of like concept, it's good to have different headers. So as you can see here, if we go down, it's a little bit different now. Okay, and then this whole text, we're gonna add, we're gonna make it a paragraph. So let's divide each one of them as a paragraph here. P, here, P. You're gonna get tired of writing tags after we finish HTML. And let's indent them. No, it wouldn't indent. Okay, it's fine. So we have the paragraphs now. It should be divided now. So you see, it's a little bit divided. And the thing about paragraph is it takes the whole page. So we'll talk about that when we're in CSS. So don't worry about it now. We could in HTML we could actually change the colors and stuff. So if we go back to W3 schools, HTML has a way for you to change the colors and stuff. It has a little bit of CSS in it, right? So you could use something called inline. So right here we have a paragraph, right? And then you can just add a color to it inline. So right here we can just add style, and you can write this as a note in case you forgot. And then you could add whatever color you want here. So we'll just say color, let's say red. And now if we go see our text, it's red. It's a magic, believe me. Coding is magic. And then you could do other things with it. You could add more. So you could just look through here and you could write the color in different ways and stuff like that. We'll learn that in CSS. So don't worry about the colors and where this come from and all this. Just know that you could add some colors and stuff here if you want. All right, so that section is done. Let me, any questions? Any question you guys have? Let's put this this button inside this section actually. Okay. And then the way we create a button is we're just going to use a tag called button. If you go here and look for buttons, I'm not sure if it's in here. Could be like in the forms and stuff, but you could use a tag called button and then close it. And that's it. It's a button. We go here underneath. It's a button. You could click if you want, but nothing's gonna happen. So that is a button. All right. Any questions so far? And the next one is the same thing. We're just gonna create. We're gonna go quicker. We're gonna create a section. This is gonna be h2. Okay. Closing tag h2. This is going to be a paragraph, another paragraph. So we're just going to copy this paragraph, start typing it, paragraph, paragraph, and then closing paragraph. Right, and then close section. Don't forget that. Okay, so if we see the result, looks nicer now. Okay, the last one left is the last section, which is the footer. Any question before we start that one? Okay. No
I have one
question.
question.
Go ahead.
I have one question. So when it comes to the actual job programming,
Yeah.
I've noticed with like WordPress websites, there's like visual editors where you don't even have to use the tags and all that. On the job, are there such tools that make it easier so you don't have to keep using the tags, or do you still put in each individual tag?
So in our work, you're hired to be a software developer or software engineer. So you still write the tags. The thing is, when you become a senior or you've been coding for a while, the visual editors, the visual code editors, which is like this one is a code editor. You're gonna have more powerful editors, like the one we talked about. This one, it's going to have, it's gonna make it easy for you to write a tag. You could just write like create, like if you use a command, something like create HTML template. And then it will create the whole template for you, starting from the HTML, all that stuff. It will just create the whole thing in one click. It will also close the things for you, so that you don't have to close it. So when I write something like a tag, it will write a tag here automatically, closing a tag for you. So there is things that's gonna make it easy for you, but at the end of the day, you still have to write the closing tags, the tags for it by yourself. And the documents is in. So how many headers? So when you say headers, I assume you mean these H2, H3. Is that what you mean? Before I move on. Okay, yeah. So if we go to W2 Schools, and this is like the best resources, this website. So just use this all the time. There's 6 of them, right here. And they have the one is the bigger one, the biggest one, and then you have like go down from there. It's kind of opposite, you know. You should have like 6, the biggest maybe, but you could use multiple ones in one page. That's fine. You could use like 2 like several times in a page. You could use like a for. So whatever you think is best. It's all about the emphasizing. You want to emphasize something more than anything else. So as I said, when we go to CNN, the first thing you're going to look at is this title. Anywhere you go to, any website of news you go to, Al Jazeera, it's the same. They're going to make the first one bold right here. So because they want you to focus on this. So that's what you need to keep in mind, is that you want to emphasize some text and make the other ones a little bit smaller. So you could use as many H1s, H2s as you want. You just want to make sure you emphasize some text more than others. But yeah, you could use as many as you want. You have 6 of them, and use all 6. Any other question? All right, let's close this. Let's close with the footer. So we're going to use the footer. Remember, semantic HTML. So this is our footer section. And if you go to any website, you see the footer. Like if you go to this website, you go all the way down, this is the footer. Usually the footer has like the copyright stuff. It has some links and stuff like that. Some people consider this to be a footer too. So as you can see, it has links. So the footer is like the last part of the website. And then here's the navigation. So we're just going to add a nav bar, just like at the top. We could just literally copy the ones at the top. We don't have to write the whole thing again. Right. And if we look at it, the changes, as you can see, looks better now. So remember, we started with one blob of text, and now we have like everything formatted in a better way. So that's HTML for you in general. And we haven't covered all the tags. We haven't covered everything, and that's by design. I want you guys to discover your own tags and kind of like figure out like things for yourself. I don't want to give you everything. There's tables. You could create tables just like Microsoft Excel. You can create your own tables to display data. You have all these tags. You have the table tag. You have a list, the one we talked about, the ULOL. I use it like this. And let me actually cover this. Let me just create a quick list here. So let's say we want to create a list, right? And we're not gonna make it any particular. So let's say we want to create a list of, let's say H2 here, list of places visit, H2, and we can make all this capital. It's not a big deal. Okay, now let's create a UL. What is UL? Who can tell me? What does it stand for?
Unordered list.
Unordered list. Yep. So every time you create an unordered list or ordered list, you still have to use LI. LI. Who remembers what LI stands for?
List item.
List item. Yes. So LI stands for list item. Yeah. So it stands for list item. So it means that one item of this list. Let's add here Ohio, LI, I mean. It doesn't matter. So let's keep it at 2. So if you go down, you'll see that we have a list here. Right? It creates an automatic list for you. Now let's change this UL to OL. Let's add O. And it's going to create a ordered list, which is numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 automatically. So that's a list for you. And then there's more. There's always more. So we can't cover everything, but go through, like if you need anything, you could add, you could read about it, watch videos, stuff like that. So yeah, go ahead, Fatih.
And I somehow struggle with ka iyo section ka iyo article ka sa u kala isticmaalo. Marka, can you show me an example of like or what is like the best way? Like let's say using your website ka or kala, what section would be like a div or I confused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
like which one is appropriate? I'm a local.
Exactly. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. There's a lot of semantic HTML tags, like article and sections and stuff. So let's see if I can like get rid of this. I can't. So let me just draw kind of like I'm looking for like an empty page. Let's go to Google homepage. It's always empty. So let me kind of like show you what you could use for that. So we have like, so we have the website, right? So you have the whole website, you have the header, and you know the header has the navigation and all that. And then you have a section or this section where you display the main content of the website. And then usually you have like a side section where you show like advertisement, more links, all that stuff. And then of course you have the footer, right? So what you wanted to know is the article and the section. So usually a section could be a group of articles, right? So you have this would be a section. We can say sec, and then you have articles here. So you have articles here. Within the articles, so this would be an article. Within the article is a paragraph. You have a paragraph each one of them, and you have also a header. So you have like a header here. So it would be something like H3 or something like that, right? So it's nesting within each other, so that like reading devices and stuff like that, they won't understand what this is, what you grouped. So let's actually go here, like the Al Jazeera. So Al Jazeera, their homepage is not like exactly like what we're looking for. Let's actually go to like Somali website. Actually, is better. One of those old Somali websites always come in hand, because this is the old version of how website used to be created, right? Sorry about like the news and stuff. I didn't want it to see that, but as you can see, it has two sides here, right? And it has at the middle, and right here you can see this could be like a whole section, and each article is a article, and then when you click it, the text would be the paragraph, right? So, but what you could do is you could show the text here, the full text you could show here if you want, and then that's how you kind of like divide it. So you nest things within each other. So that's how you know where to put it. And then you have a whole section here, another section, and then you have the footer here, right? Sorry about that. And then you have a section here, same as here. Does that answer your question?
Yes, actually, that makes it better. And then div kamarka, is it like the thing that's holding all together, like the sections and everything? Is it a div that's all? Okay.
Yeah. So this would be the div. This would be the div, and you could add div wherever you want. Like if you want to divide things, you could add div. A lot of times when you go to some websites, they might not even have section, all that stuff. This is a good standard to use this, but they might even consider like the section as just a div, and they don't even care about the semantics. So they just make a div of everything and then nest everything within the div, and then that's how they divide it. But I would say use a div at the top and then use another div at the top, stuff like that, and then nest sections within that div, and that's how you nest it. Hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, laakiin anaa su'aal yar oo macaan.
Aya.
Markaas waxaasoo dhan waxay ku wada jiraan maintay ku wada jiraan maca.
So there's also main. Yeah, so there's the main. The thing is, the main, you could use it if you want. You don't have to use the main. Yeah, but everything could be in main. So the header, the nav, the footer, all that could be in main. Main means this is the main website, right? So when you come to the website, the device, it knows this is the website. This is the main section of the website. It's not, you could also add, like sometimes you might want to have something other than the website. So you have some section of the website that you want people to focus on, and that's the main. And then you have a small section that you like a footer or something like that, that you want people to read later. So yeah, you could use the main. So this is all optional, but I want you guys to try it first, because I want you to understand the best standard of writing HTML. Can you use BR instead of div? No, BR is for break, line break. So let's say here we wanna break this text down. So we could add BR in the middle of it. So let's say it's right here. We wanna like break it right here or right here. We just add BR, and it's gonna break that text right here. So if we go down, you can see the text break here. So you have a line break. So that's what BR stands for. So it's only used to divide text in general. Any other question? Okay, so that's the kind of like the lesson today, in general. And I will share the link here. Let me save it. I'll share the link so you guys can use it as a reference. Right there. And also let's look at the assignment. So if we go to the student training, where is it? Let's go to here, go back. Let's go to plus. So here's where you are going to see the assignment. So if we go to the left side, if you have never logged in or anything, you could watch this video, which explains a little bit more. And also I want to talk about more about like the assignment and how we grade and things like that. But we're not doing the attendance right now. We'll start using the attendance another time. But right now, I want you guys to just do the assignment. So if you want to read more, you can read more here. Watch a couple of videos I created, and then go to assignment. And then, as I said, have an account on CodeBin. Log into your account first, and then click this link. It will take you here. So when you click this link, I want you guys to click this where it says fork, right? So fork means create a copy for myself. If you see Gibby School right here at the top, that means this copy is not yours. So if you make changes here, so let's actually log out and click the link again. See, it says here Gibby School. But if I make changes here, so let's delete some stuff. Let's actually delete the whole thing, right? There's no way for me to save it, first of all. There's no link, there's no saving. And if I refresh, it's going to say, oh, you didn't save anything because you're not even logged in and it's not even yours. So make sure you log into your account first, right? And then click fork. Fork will make a copy for you, and then it's going to show your name here, right? So sign up account, it's free, and then do that. So once you fork, so that's the first step, right? Right here is the steps. Actually, I wrote down the steps for you too. So, yeah. So I create. Actually, wait a minute. We're in the CSS. Oh, this is the. What's going on? Let me see. This is the assignment. Yeah, this is HTML and CSS. Okay. I think we have to go over CSS too. The introduction CSS. Yeah, I think we forget that. So we learned HTML. I want to show you a couple of things about CSS too. I thought we were going over only HTML, but we actually have to go over CSS. Yeah, that's what I forgot. Okay, so let's go back to the assignment here. I think we're not gonna have, we have to go over the time, but let's take a break actually. Before we do the CSS, let's take a break. 5-minute break, and then inshallah start with the CSS, inshallah. Okay, 5-minute break. Like that. Yeah, today we have a lot to cover, and we haven't even covered CSS. So we're gonna cover CSS, and that'll be, I skipped to the assignment, but I was supposed to cover CSS, so we're gonna cover that. Okay. So we have a quick slide about it too, about CSS. Can you guys hear me? Everyone can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, sounds good. Yeah, so I noticed after we went to the assignment, I noticed that you have to create a whole full-fledged website, Fatima Restaurant. So this is what you guys are going to be creating in the assignment. You have a whole week, so don't worry if it looks intimidating. But I'm going to teach you how to format your website with CSS, right? So we're going to quickly go over what CSS is. CSS is a complement to HTML. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. It's a document that's designed to define how the web page looks like. It's used to style HTML pages, and it was created by this guy. I can never say his name. I'm just gonna call him Lee. He created in 1994. There were other guys that created similar things, but his became the format or the standard. And also the standard is created by the browsers, by the way. So and also there's an organization called the World Wide Web. I think it's in Stanford. They regulate all the standards on HTML and CSS and things like that. So he created that, and then it was adopted. It's basically a kind of like a definition of how the website is going to look like. So it just defines how elements are going to look like. An anatomy of that is this. So we have H1. Remember, we just talked about H1, which is a tag. So whatever tag you want, H1P, any tag, image, then you could define CSS with it, right? So this is selector, you select it, and then you say, okay, let me give it a color of blue, and then let me give it a font size of 12 pixels. And remember, we talked about like Microsoft Word. It has like the font size here, so you could just make the font size bigger. It's same thing, just changing the color and stuff like that. So you have to put it in the curly bracket for the CSS to make sense. And I'll show you an example how it looks. CSS selectors. This one is just the same of what we talked about here. So H1, paragraph, all the elements, HTML elements or tags are selectors, basically. So that's what this is talking about. Yeah. So there is different layers of selectors, right? There's something called universal selector, which is just a hash, not hash, I mean a star. So this one is basically if you want to select everything. So if you want to make everything one color, then you use the star. And we'll see, I'll show you an example how that looks. There's also a element type selectors. So that like UL, OL, H1, things like that. All the tags, the HTML tags that we talked about. And then there is ID selector. An ID selector is a hash bound or @ sign. So this one is, we'll see an example of it, but it's a type of way to select HTML. And then there's a class selector, which is a dot in CSS. And we'll see. So this might not make sense to you right now, but I'll show you as an example. And you could use that. In CSS, there's something called the box model. The box model is basically what we talked about earlier on here. So the box model is basically how things are nested within each other, right? So you have like the upper section, all that. Then if you want to make a color on like the upper div, then that's you could like make a space between the upper div and the inner div, and that would be a margin. So let's actually go back to the slide. So that would be margin right here. So you see margin is the space between the highest layer and the second layer. So whatever you want to put between, space between, then that is the margin. So like in our slide here, there's there's this space between the dot and the text, right? So that could be a margin, right? So when they say margin of error, that's what they mean, is like a space between something. And then there's a border. So you could create like a border. When I say border, I'm talking about this layer, you know, the lines are borders, right? So you could change the color of the border, you could change how thick it is, all that stuff. You could change that too. And then there's padding. Padding is another space. So margin and padding, they're both spaces, but the padding is the space between the border and the text. So that would be right here. If you have like a text here, if you want to put a space between the border and that text, then that you add a padding there. And I'll give you a reference to that and all that. You don't have to remember everything. And that's it. So that's the box model. It's basically like how do you space everything? So you have a whole website. You have like this whole website. Like we have this is an example. How do you put this space between right here and right here? How do you put a space between? Why is this space above bigger than this space? So that's a box model. It's basically each text and each element is within a box. And that's what HTML is. Basically, it's like a bunch of boxes put together in a certain order, right? So you need to put a space between everything. You see there's a space between these two texts. How do you do that? You use padding to do that. Okay. Any question about margin, border, padding? It might not make sense to you right now, but I'll show you as an example too. All right, so that's a pattern. And also there's few things here, but I'm not sure if I want to show you here right now. But let's go for it. So you have the HTML file, right? So this is how the HTML looks like. And we showed the header, right? So the header, you could put a CSS within the header. This is called a internal CSS, right? Internal CSS. Usually this is not the good way to do it. You want to put all your CSS in a different file. And that file will have a extension ending at .css, right? So you could keep all your CSS in one place. But if you want to put CSS within HTML, you have to put it in the header, and you have to put it like this. It has this style tag, and then this is how you define your elements of CSS. And then there is the external, as I said. If you want to add external, then you have to add a link in the header to point to the CSS file. So for now, this is the style.css file. So this is how you point it. In CodeBin, we don't have to use that since it has its own CSS section. But if you're using a editor, which you will use in the next lesson, then this is how you add to it. And we're gonna go over the time. Sorry about that. But if you have something to do, I'm recording this so you could watch it later. Someone asked me if they think it was Ahmed, if we can finish it on time or maybe a little bit before. So if you have something to do, you could go, inshallah. So this is how you link a CSS within HTML. And then everything you define here in this file. So let's say if you say H1, make it a blue color within this file, and it's another file. It's not even in here. Then H1, every H1 will become blue, right? So that's how you link a CSS. And in the next lesson, we'll see an example of that. All right. So that's it. So that's how you connect HTML, CSS to HTML. And that's a small introduction to CSS. Any question? There's also a whole section of CSS right here. So you could also use this as a reference. Okay. So let's see as an example. So the lesson we were working on, right? So right here we have everything. We want to change it. We want to add some CSS to it. Okay. Let's zoom out for a second. So we open the CSS section of the code bin. So what we can define is we could say change everything all the text into red, right? So remember the selectors we talked about? So the star, which we talked about here, selectors, so this is the universal selector. We could say star and then say color, let's say red. And then now every text turns into red. Every text on the website turns into red. Okay. So universal selector, you don't want to use it for everything, right? You don't want to use it for everything. But now we're going to use it for something called box sizing. You could Google this if you want. So box sizing is going to help us with the formatting. So right here, it's box sizing. So what is box sizing? Trying to find the easiest definition. So box sizing, this is what it does. So basically is it doesn't the content doesn't overflow the containers that we have. So if you have a text or something, it doesn't go over that text. So whatever you define, if you define a div and you define a text within the div or a paragraph, the paragraph doesn't go to another div, right? So visually wise. So we want to define that right at the front. And then we just say border box. Okay, so make the border, each border like a box, and don't allow the borders to like mix. So this is important to know. So that would not do anything. That's just a behavior control that you need to add every CSS file, right? And then we want to make all the headers, we want to make them one size. So the way we do it, we first select a header 1, let's say, and then we define what it is. So this is how you define it. You always have to have that curly bracket and you use that. So if you want to add more, you could just say h2 and comma h3. So all these, we could make them one size. So let's make them like 20 pixels. So font size, 20 pixels. So all of them, they're same now. And how do you know, where do you get this font size from? Is on the website W3 Schools. So you go to here and you go to font or text, and then it has text color here. You could change the what's the text size, fonts, not fonts. What is it? Font size. Yeah, font size is right here. You can see right here. That's how you define it, and you could read more about it. So there's more stuff here that you could change. So now all the headers are that, and we could also change the color to something. Let's change them to blue. Right. These are already blue because they're linked. Links are automatically blue. By default, they're blue. So that's that. And also the colors, remember we type here blue, but there's different types of colors. I'm not sure if we cover in here on this lesson. Let me see. I think we're covering here too. So yeah, we're covering. So colors are important in CSS because that's how you define everything. If we go to colors right here, you see you have unlimited number of colors. You could define your own colors. You could create your own colors, and the colors you can mix them. Like you can mix and match colors. There's 3 ways to define colors. The first one, or 4 ways. The first one is by name. So if you know the name already, you could just use the name, and these names are already defined by the browser, right? So you just have to find them. Here is a list of 140 standard color names. You could go there and find one. But if we change the color to Dodger blue, as you can see, it's a nice color. But those, these are kind of limited. Sometimes you might not have a, the control you want. And there's RGB. Who can tell me what RGB stands for? Who remembers?
Is it red, green, black, or blue?
Red, green, blue. Red, green, blue. So RGB is the red, green, blue. And RGB is what the computers see. So as a human, you see thousands of colors, if not millions, right? Depending on like the sunlight and like all the, you know, all that stuff, reflections and things like that. You see a lot of colors in different ways, but the computers, they only see red, green, blue. So everything you see on a computer is a mix of red, green, and blue, right? So it's some shade of mix of that. So on here, as you can see, we could mix them, right? So we could mix, and if you make the red less, you see, you get this color, like you could mix and match. If you maximize them, they have a number. So if you maximize them all, it's 255, 250, 255. If you make them all 0, what happens? So all of them are white when it's like maximized. If we make them 0, what happens? What color is that? Who remembers? If we make everything 0, what is it going to be?
Black, was it?
Black, right? So it's the opposite of white. So black. And then we have the, you know, everything in between. So everything between black and white is defined here. And you could use this, like if we want this color, we could just copy, go back here, and instead of Dodger blue, we could just say RGB. It has to say like that, RGB, and then that color, right? And then it has to have those 3 things. So that's one way. Another way to define the color. Another way would be something using hex. So where's the thing we're using? Using hex. Not a lot of people use HSL or Hassel. So I'll just say RGB, the names, and the hex. Most of the time you see hex. Hex is the most famous one. Hex is just a code for a color. So if you want red, then you have this code. So it's 6 characters long with the hashtag on front. So, and then the way you find out that is by changing this around. As you can see, the first one, the red, is like that. So it's a mix of letters and numbers. There's a whole reason behind all this that I don't want to go into, but there is a way you could calculate it without even doing this. You could do it in your head or something, but I'll let you do research on that. But it's 6 characters, and then you could just you know, change the colors. That's too bright, so let's make it something like a dimmer color like that, and then copy this and paste it right here. Instead of this, you could just use that. Don't forget that hashtag, and then as you can see, the color change right there. Any question about colors? They're really important when it comes to programming and coding and stuff like that. Okay, so now we know.
How do you decide which one to use? If there's 4 different ways.
I would say use the hex. The way you decide is, especially if you're working on a company, they usually have hex. Like 99% of them, they use hex. But if you see the company has a standard of RGB, then just use the RGB. So yeah, so I would say hex is the first one most of the people use, then RGB is the second. I have never seen a company using name colors because this is limited. And what if the browser is changed or something? You have no control over it and stuff like that. And also you could misspell it, and it's a hectic. So you don't want to use this in work. You could use it for your own projects, but not at work. So use the hex as much as you can. Okay, so that we styled that, but now we need to style a let's style the paragraph. So P, you choose P, and then we could just do whatever we could. Let's add some space between the lines, right? The way you add it is by saying line height, and then we could add something like 1.25. You don't have to add the pixels here. It's not a lot, but if we do like 3, see, like there's a big space between the lines. You could add so many things. We could say, we could change the colors, of course. We could add, you could just look through here and what do you want to change? You could change a font. So there's different type of fonts. So there's serif, sans serif, all that stuff. You could change that too. Let's see. Yeah, you could change the alignment. So if you want to make them a center or stuff like that, you could change that. So you could play around with it and change that. So let's keep it at this for now. Let's also move everything into a better format. So as you can see, this is like on the left side. Everything's on the left side. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a class, right? So how do we create a class? We went over here. How do you, what are we going to use to create a class? Class selector. So this is the universal one. This is the elements that the HTML tags. This is, we're going to go over the ID, but class, we're going to use a dot, right? So if you want to define it, you have to start with a dot. So we're going to say container. So this is the general container of the everything. And then we're going to define a couple of things, right? Let's define the width. Let's make it like 500 pixels. And let's define margin. And this is what I talked about when I said about the box model is we want to define the margin around the whole thing, right? Margin around everything we just created. So we're going to start with the 0 and auto. So this is a format that's used to center everything. I'm not sure why it's not centering. Oh, it's not centering because we didn't use this container yet. We didn't tell the HTML we created a class. So this is kind of like centers, and this gives us a brings everything together in a small section instead of having everything like having all this text all the way here. Okay, so how do we add this class to the HTML? Who remembers? How do we add it? Okay, so if we want to add it, it's the container. Container means it's like the top div. So this is the top div, hopefully. I think that's the top div. And then we're going to add a class. You just say class, and then you tell it container. That's it, right? Container, container. Make sure the spelling is exactly the same. Make sure you say class equal to. That's how you define a class container. As you can see, everything is centered and looks nice. Any question about that, about class? And I know class is a little bit tricky. Make sure, don't forget the dot, and don't forget to define it in the HTML, whatever you want. It doesn't have to be container. It could be in any element of HTML or any tag. You could define a class. So class could be whatever you want. It could be whatever you want. And then you write something. Let's say something like font size. Let's say 70 pixels. That's going to be big. And then we add. So the good thing about class is you could add more classes. So let's say we have a container here and we want to add whatever you want here. You just give it a space and you add it. So now all text becomes 70 pixels. You could add more classes if you want. You just have to give it a space here and that's it. Right? So class could be whatever you want. It doesn't have to be a specific thing that already defined. Okay. Another thing is the ID. So someone question, can you give analogy of everything? So for HTML, CSS, different components to make it easier to remember. What do you mean by analogy? Like something to remember with? Like you mean like house. So sometimes I use the analogy of like a house. Yeah. So yeah, so HTML is like a house. And basically the CSS is like the decorations of the house or the coloring of the house, right? So the structures of like the wood and all that stuff is the tags of the HTML. And then the CSS is basically making it look nice and looking at the way you want, like what color you want, basically. So that's how I usually give it as an analogy. Thanks for reminding me that. Any question about class? And also you could go here and find class somewhere in here. Let's look for it. The pseudo class. Don't want the pseudo class. Yeah, we'll learn the pseudo class another time. But that's how class is defined, basically. Let's define an ID, maybe. Let's try ID. So the thing about the difference between ID and class. Before we do that, who can tell me what should I use for ID? Class is a dot. And the ID is what? Who remembers? It's right there.
Hashtag sign.
Yeah, the hashtag sign. So so we could just define hashtag here and say whatever we want. So we could say let's say something like say title. Let's just say title for now. Maybe we want to change this one to something else, and then define it. So we say, so it's let's make it bigger, maybe. Font size. Let's say 50 pixels, and also let's center it. So text align. I mean, a lot of people ask me like, how do you remember this? After you write a lot of this, then you'll remember. First, you have to look it up every time, but after, like, you just look up how to center text, and then it will show you in Google. But after a while, you'll get it. Center, right? And now we just add it to this title. How do we add it? Who can guess? How do we add it here? So just like the class, we add it here, and we say ID is equal to title. It's like that. So you can see it's bigger. Center is maybe too big. Say 40. Sometimes you have to keep adjusting like that until you get the right thing you want. Okay. Any question about how to define an ID and how to add it into your HTML? Another thing about ID is, keep in mind, the thing about ID is, maybe I'll leave a comment here. How do you leave a comment in CSS? Let me remember. Just leave it here. Forgot how to write a comment here. But the thing about it is, let's write a paragraph here. ID can only, let's say, each ID can only be used once at the other page. So you cannot have two titles here. And actually, you cannot have, you cannot have two titles here. And you cannot add another ID here. If you want to define another ID, you could define it here and just say something like ID, something like that, right? So you can't have the same ID defined somewhere else in the file. It's actually easy to explain. But yeah, keep in mind, you could only use an ID per page, one same ID per page. You could make anything ID. Just keep in mind that these like H1, you cannot make like H1 here. I mean, you could, but it's not recommended. It's going to confuse the next person. But yeah, you could define it whatever you want. Just use that hash bound and then use this. Some people might ask, like, why do we need to use class and ID? I mean, I don't have a good answer for it, but they have a different uses. Like later, when you kind of advance more, you will see that you could use ID for certain things, classes for certain things. They have different type of uses. You'll figure out later when we go through the advanced lesson. Okay. One last thing we need to do, couple of things left. The header section, no, actually, never mind. The header section is fine. We want to change the navigation. We want to change the navigation to make it look better and give it more space. So now you can see all the navigation is just one line and they're all smushed together. So let's change that. Let's change that to something that we can read. So all we need to do now is we need to define where the navigation is at. So we have to say, okay, where's the navigation? Navigation is under header, it's under navigation, nav, and each one has an A, right? So if we want to define that, we say header, nav, and then we say A, which is each one of them, like each one of them has an A, and that's how we define it. And these are like HTML tags. So you don't have to add them here, they're already there, right? And then we give space between them. So you could just say something like margin left. Let's say something like 20 pixels, right? So each one has a margin to the left. So margin is like a space basically. And we could change their font to something else. We could say font size 18 pixels, which is similar to what it is right now. So, and also we could change the colors. We could get rid of the line underneath it. So we could say something like, the thing is, I don't even remember exactly how you write that. So I'll show you how I found out. So you could just say remove line under link in CSS. See? So you just look for it. And then there's already a Stack Overflow answer. You use this text decoration none, right? So just like I found this one, I want you to try, if you're stuck, to find an answer. And then you put that in and you can see the line is gone. Okay, could also center them, text align, center, right? Oh, it's not gonna center. It's not gonna center because we need to put that in nav, not in a tag. So we can just say header nav and then put that center. The reason for that is this A is each one of them. It's not all of them. So we want to center all of them. We have to define it in the nav. Okay. Any question about that? Sorry, I didn't read the text. Background color. What about background color? Oh, you meant like when we were doing the removing the line? Okay. Any question about this one? This is how you like, you just look at the HTML. You're like, okay, this is the parent element for nav, right? And the nav is the parent element for a tag. That's how you want to see it. You want to see it as like a parent, and then the parent tag for header. What is the parent tag for header? You want to put a space between the pic nav. Yeah, if you want to put any space between anything, you could use margin. There's also padding. Padding is used in, let's say you want to put a space between the paragraph and, let's see, you want to put a space between these two paragraphs, you could use padding or margin. I'll say use margin, especially on the lower one, so that you have space between them. If you give a pattern, it will give you space around it. So the way you define, and also we could like look through how do you define this margin. I want you guys to figure it out mostly by yourself. So if we go to margin, you could define a top, right, bottom, and left. So if you want to like target specific area and you want to add more space to it, then that's how you define it, right? You could also just say margin and then define something, and then that will cover all sides, right? All sides of that element, basically. Any question? And pattern is the same thing. So if you go to pattern, it has the same 4 sides, right? And then if you just use pattern only, then it means whatever you put after it, the pixels, is gonna affect all the sides. Any question? All right. How to put a link inside the bottom? What do you mean? Okay, so yeah, so let me know what do you mean. And then, so let's see. Now we defined the navigation, we could add more and define each one of them and like create list, change this list, this stuff. We could add a space underneath here so that we have more space. So if you want to do that, you go to container and then you just tell the margin, you say margin bottom, and then let's say 20 pixels. So if you go down, you have more space here now than before, a little more space. You could add more here if you want, say 100. You have a lot more space now. This is 100 pixels, basically. You could do same at the top, all that stuff. Okay, any question? Okay.
So in terms of like the Googling, I like that because it kind of demystifies programming. Like it's not this person who's like a super genius who has everything memorized. Every good programmer Googles.
Yeah.
That's what you said.
100%, 100%. Always Google. I don't know all this. I know these. I know this because I remember them. Some of them have a note written for me. But there's a lot I don't remember. Like for example, pseudo classes, which I'm not sure if we want to cover today. No, we're not covering today pseudo classes, but these are the things that we covered so far. The colors and the alignment, and also display. I want to cover that too. And I want to cover CSS specificity, but I think it's a little more advanced. We can add that to the next lesson. But yeah, you're not gonna know everything. You're not gonna remember everything. So just use this and Google as a reference. So remember, I was doing like alignment, text align. So right here, CSS align. As you can see, it's right here. Text. I mean, you could do different alignments. There's different type of alignments, but there's the text alignments here. Center. You could do right, left. Okay. Border. There's border too. Let's add a border to something. So let's copy this and add a border between the header, the title. So let's add here border. There's border. So play around with it and look for different things and try out different things. Don't be afraid to mess things up and just undo it. If you feel like it's not working for you, you could just delete it like that. Or you could use the undo button and it will undo for you, like in your keyboard. Okay, let's add one more thing, which is we can make the button look better if we want. But I'm trying to understand what Mohammed is asking me. Put a link inside. Okay, yeah. So how do you put a link inside a button? Okay, I get it now. Okay, so if you want to add a link to the button, you could just add a link on top of it. You could add a tag, href, and then define whatever here, and then do the closing tag here. A, like that. So now, if you go to the button, you could click it, and it will take you whatever you put in here. So you could, kind of cover a link on top of it. Yeah. Yeah, we could define the color of the button and all that stuff, but we ran out of time. Any questions? Let me actually cover the display. What is display? So if we go here and click display, display is how you show elements on the page. Some elements, basically, they're called block level elements. Block level elements, when we talk about block level elements, we're talking about, let me actually refresh this because I want to draw a little bit. So when you have a website, right, you have some elements that will take the whole width of the page. For example, some of those are like H1 to H6, right? They're called level block elements. So that means if you write a title and it's a long title, it will not jump to the next line. And if you put something in between it, it will not break. You could make it break, but it will not break. There's also a paragraph. The P, it has to take the whole thing. So we have paragraphs here. These paragraphs, they have to take the whole space unless you break it down. So block level elements means it's a block. It takes the whole thing. And then there's inline elements. It means they don't have to take the whole thing. You could just, it will take whatever space you give it. But if you put something in between it, it will break. So let me show you as an example. And also there is a display none, but we'll cover that quickly. So what does it mean to have a block element, block level element? So let's go to a paragraph as an example, right? So the paragraph is, unless you put in a break, it will keep going, right? And if we put in, let's put in something else, another element. There's an element called a span, which is a like small text. It's like if you want to put something in between other texts, this is where you put it. This is our text span. So we just put in right in between the paragraph, right? And we go here. Where's our text? Where do we put that? So it's a fly with us. Where did we put that? It doesn't show. Oh yeah, it's right here. So it's right here. So it's mixed within it. So it doesn't break. It doesn't break anything. But what we could do is, so if we actually we could define it in CSS. Let's go back here. We want to see a better example. Give me a second. Paragraph is good, but it's hard to. So a block level element always starts on a new line and takes a full width, stretches out the left and right. Okay. An inline element that does not start on a new line and only takes up to as much width as necessary. Okay. Let me see. I think I want to find a better example. Example of block level element HTML. Okay. All right, so let's see this. This block level element. So as you can see here, you break this down, but it takes a full space here, right? It takes the full space. So let's actually do that. Let's get rid of this for now. And let's give it a background color. Background color, say blue. So you see it has a blue background. So this whole blue section is where the paragraph is taken, right? And in here, if we break it down, it will not break down. It will not take that space. But if we do actually span here, span, and use the same text here, span element. The span element will not take the whole space. It will take as much as you need. Right now, we don't have a lot of space, but basically the span will not take this full space. It will just take only the section we defined. So let's add this to, so you can see comparison. You see the difference? So this is the paragraph. It takes everything. So even if you have, if there's nothing here, it just takes, it fills out the whole thing. But the span, it takes only the space it needs, right? So that's the difference. So space it needs, it doesn't take the whole thing. And if you put something, let's say, if you put something in between the span, it will break into a new line, right? This will not break into another line. So that's when you hear a block level element, that's basically what it means. It basically means like a couple of elements that take the whole width of the page. Right? Let's go back here, CSS display. All right. It's hard to explain because it's kind of like abstract. And inline is the span. You can see there's examples here. Inline, span, a tag and image tag. Those are inline. And then this is block level. So you'll understand more. And then there's none. It's easy to explain this one because if we put a none display here, so we add another one and say display none, it'll just get rid of whatever is in here. Right? It will not show. None means don't show anything. Whatever this block is, don't show it. That's what it means, none. Okay. So sorry for taking too long, but it's a concept, important concept in programming, in HTML. Okay, so that's pretty much it of CSS. Any question? We haven't covered everything, but I want you guys to figure things out over the week, and create this assignment right here, this page. You're going to be creating this from scratch. Any question? All right. Okay. So yeah. So just click this, fork it, create an account on CodePen, do the semantic markup, use this color as a background. So the header and the footer background, this one and this one, use this one, this color. Change all fonts and styles according to the design file. So basically the way it looks. All texts are, these are like the font type basically. And then I just define a little more instructions here. And that's it. So once you finish this, then you're gonna come here and submit the assignment. Click here, submit assignment. You choose the week 1. You add the link. So the link would be the CodePen link, and it has to be your link. It has to show your name here. So
I think it's too zoomed in right now.
You guys kind of see it?
Maybe zoom out.
Okay, let me zoom out. What about now? Can you see now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, so I'm just add the link here and then choose the grading. I will say 2 if you have finished it. If you want beyond and above and added images and other things, then choose 3. Okay, and then you could just add anything here, whatever you want to say. If you have any blockers, anything, add here. So blockers, discoveries, and advices or suggestions or stuff like that. So you submit it, and that's it. So this is your assignment. As you can see, you graded yourself, right? And then I come in and I look at your assignment and I look over it, and if it looks good, then I grade it here on the other side of this application. Okay. Any question about the assignment submission? Okay. That's pretty much it. You have a whole week to do this. I would say study more, look over other things, and then inshallah you'll succeed. let me pause the recording so that other people don't have to listen to everything.